just walk in, but they were looking at.
Would y'all do just walk up and say we can help you?
I said, so anyway, I can help you, you know, either are y'all doing, oh yeah, just want
How's family?
information and
Uh,
my mom's
good.
in here and.
See the fact that you walk up and just ask them for months.
Yeah.
Get everybody.
You know,
he's
running it out.
Dude, it's like,
Yeah, it's all just-
yeah. That's good.
Really got to show
Go to new build area.
I'll walk in the side,
Yeah.
Best situation.
Yeah, most people don't say that.
It's been crazy, and Jenny's back in school, so I.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Holidays are tough, man.
I don't know.
Just
Just
shuts down. A lot of distractions, things gonna shut down, the momentum's off.
Last week, I put in $900 with the big offers. They raised the table back down. We did that offers. So possibly picked up another buyer over the holidays.
Yeah.
So I mean,
You created the momentum, yeah.
Dude, it's not my goal. I'm sorry.
I'm gonna have to get.
Okay, you know, Jody talks about the carryover.
I know, dude.
That carryover component is so critical.
Yeah. I just momentum, you know, if you feeling just behind.
Yeah.
It's horrible feeling.
It's not fun.
I'd rather be 70,000.
Yeah. Exactly.
Zero.
And still running, right?
Yeah.
I feel like, even
Yeah.
if I take a couple of hits.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. We just closed the one door down. 3-car garage, 4-bedroom. This is.
Oh, there's pages on for you.
And they still won't sell. I'm trying to go.
I gave Mike a hard time. I said, I'm gonna go support Lance or you. He was at home with his kids.
I got things to do. I have things to do.
Yeah.
The good busy.
$100,000.
Me too.
Yeah.
There you
I saw your numbers. Sorry. Well, when the max is on it. Right when that happened. All this. Happened 2 seconds. Days on fire.
That was a good client.
Good morning. How are you? They're always in it on the third Wednesday. It's on the calendar. Yes. I'm
Deanne came in yesterday and tripped, so apparently that's the new trend. You come in and fall down and get it over with.
Okay.
Breaks the ice.
2022.
Yeah, I'll do it tomorrow.
Please do that.
Fun's already flying through, you know.
Huh?
This fun's already flying through.
Just like that.
I know.
It's built exactly the way they found it. It's a house. They held it forever. It's on fire, so, only house. So,
See, I was like, yeah.
60 just like so far.
Sure.
It's exactly.
Jimmy.
I mean, you can't look. Hey, you're still coming.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're the boss.
I mean, okay.
Did you want to meet her? She gets to blame you.
Nick, I'll wait on your cue. Started here. I think we got, okay, start. We're ready.
That's my cue.
Okay, very good. I think we got everything on with the Zoom crowd, but happy New Year to everybody. Excited to be in the new year. I think if you're like me, this time comes with a lot of stresses and a lot of thoughts and a lot of direction. And hopefully we did some business planning in October, November, December, so we have a plan to start the year. But at the same time, in a new year, there's a lot of pressure. Like a lot of pressure on us to make good decisions. We're trying to guide our family, trying to get the kids out of the house, to school. And so, this is a really exciting time of the year, but there's also a lot of, pressure to really make something new, right? We're in 2022. We had, in 21 and 20, it's some challenging and changing years. And a lot of that has really probably reshaped your mind of how you think, what your goals are in the future. if we hit hard times financially, we're thinking about how do we not do that again? We're gonna, typically avoid pain. And then we may be thinking about, planning of potentially vacations or where we're going to take the family and what we're going to do to take care of our own, right? So today I only say that because there's a lot going on, and a lot of times our wealth building and our ideas behind that kind of get pushed to the back burner, and we're looking at what's right in front of our face. So it's almost like we're going through a foggy, afternoon, and all you can see is what's right in front of you. And a lot of times that's, what do I have to do right now to get a new buyer? What do I have to do to get a new seller? How do I get income coming in? January and February, sometimes a little slower months in terms of real estate. And so, there's a lot going on in our heads, but we have to clear out space, right? For what's the big theme? What's 5 years from now look like? What's 10 years from now look like for our lives? So I'm Lance Taylor. We have a team here at the office. We haven't had a chance to meet yet. We've got a wonderful team, and we're super excited to be part of this office with Mike and Dick. I have been on a wealth building journey, and especially in the past couple of years, to really figure out how do I have a life worth living, but at the same time become work optional one day. I think everybody enjoys what we do in the real estate business. We all like to be connected to people and providing value for others. We get value back from that. But at some point in time, we might get tired. We might want some other options, maybe want some other income coming in to really stabilize our lives so we can continue to, be great, family people, so we can be great, husbands, wives, or, of course, take care of our kids. We've got so many other focuses that we have in life. So I want to talk through some top strategies and things that I've been working on, personally. I'll tell you, let me get this started here real quick. I have a little slide, I think, pull up here. Share screen. Select the window or application you want to share.
Bottom right.
This one maybe?
Bottom right.
Is that sharing? Yep. And now see your application. Okay. So quick disclaimer, before we start here, this is for educational purposes and for entertainment. I am not a tax professional, although we'll talk about some ideas. I'm not a financial planner, although we'll talk about some ideas there too. I'm a real estate agent just like you guys, and looking for ways to continue to build wealth for our family. So a little bit about me. I started in the real estate industry when I was 18 years old. I got licensed not to sell in real estate. I got licensed to invest. I bought a Carlton Sheets course as soon as I went to college. I started, learning to, understand how do you build wealth? How do you buy, single family houses? My family has been in the real estate business. My dad started a brokerage in 1981. So I had some indication of what real estate looks like. And to be honest, at 18, it was not a very sexy business for me. I was thinking about what I thought would be much, bigger things in life. So in the journey of, I bought a house when I was 18. I cut tile, I painted the house, I did everything I could to add value in this house, and I rented it out. And so I thought I had some things, kind of figured out. Well, God had a change in plans for me. I went to college, got out of college, 2008, 2009 timeframe. As you know, real estate was a tougher business to be in, if any of y'all date back to that. And I had an opportunity to travel and do international business. So I went to partnered up with a family member of mine and went to LED lighting business. And so traveled abroad and went to China. I got to spend some time in Japan, Korea, and do sourcing and business development for that company. And during that time, my focus was creating income. There was some challenges in the economy. So I kind of lost sight of my wealth building path. But at the same time, I was always thinking about how do I get better? How do I learn more? How do I educate myself? So I was in the process of reading a lot of books at that time. And then fast forward to 2011, my first daughter was born, and 2013, my second daughter was born. I did not have a desire to travel anymore and be in China, working 12-hour days over there and then working even nights because they're exactly 12 hours difference and missing my family for 2 weeks at a time. So Came back and I got my real estate license in 2013 in Texas. I'd already been licensed in Arkansas. And my wife had gotten licensed in 2011 with her real estate license. And so we kind of started this real estate journey again. The best part about that particular time is I had a lot of pressure to perform. There was really no choice. I burned the bridges behind me at that point, decided to come back. I'm going to be, close for my family. And so we had to take off quick, and we did, thanks to tremendous support from my wife too. And so then we started our team in 2018, but around about 2016, 2017, I had been reading some books about investing in businesses, and I was starting to throw off some additional income. And so I invested in several businesses over the course of those years, and many of them failed. Currently we sit at 8 businesses that are currently in operation. About 3 of those are very profitable. The other 5 we're working on. And so what I realized is when you invest in anything, there's a time period, and many times 4 or 5 years before you get any return on all your efforts. And that's a long planning horizon for most of us. So at this point, we have 18 real estate properties that we've purchased, and heavily looking to invest in more. And I'm going to tell you more about why that is, and the advantage that all of us have in this room being in real estate and an investor in real estate. So that's kind of my life story. And now I'm extremely focused on the tax planning and tax decisions as part of my business. Because do any of you know what your biggest expenses in real estate? Taxes. It's taxes. Just about every time. It could be salaries, potentially, but many times it's taxes. And so as you start to create more income, which is a really great thing, you have more investable income to utilize, you also create a huge tax burden. And so I started looking for efficiency within that. And so there's really about 4 ways that you as a real estate agent can make tremendous moves over the next 2 to 3 years. And one of those is going to include some tax strategies that we're going to talk about, okay? So what would you do if you didn't have to work? It's a really hard question for me because I don't desire not to work. But I also don't desire to have a tremendous pressure on me every single day that if I don't execute, my family's going to suffer. I don't want that. But what would you do if you didn't have to work? Travel. Yeah. Archery. I see in the back. Go hunting, right? And what's the gap? So this is what's called, work optional. And I really like this particular phrase. I didn't coin it. But work optional is you get to do what you want to do when you want to do it. And so as you continue to grow your real estate income and invest wisely, we're all going for this work optional piece. And to do that, we typically have to come to this financial freedom number, which is not necessarily 10 million, 20 million, 50 million. It's a cash flow equation. What does it cost to be you to live on a monthly basis? And what is the income passively that you have to derive to be able to exceed that number? So if it costs $5,000 for you to run your life and you can come up with $5,000 in passive income, your work optional. It can be that simple. The wealth is the business. So this is just a different way to kind of look at your life. So we all have work, and I think this is what a lot of times we're focused on. Keller Williams, a majority of the training is going to be based on the work, our career, what we're doing to grow our income. Because before we grow, if we can't grow our income, it's very difficult to have excess cash that we can then start to invest, right? And so the other segment, though, that we don't always look at because it's longer range thinking is investments. Some of us may have, 401ks from previous employers, or we may fill a Roth IRA. We have some kind of like auto investing. We're not really thinking about investing as an overarching opportunity to get freedom. Some different examples of investments, right? You can see here. And in real estate, because of what we do, we probably have more knowledge than anyone else on how to invest in homes. We do it for our clients every day. I I came from a different Keller Williams office too. And I remember thinking, just a couple of years back, I remember thinking, man, it's such a shame that we're in the business of helping buyers and sellers every single day. We have, hundreds of transactions that go through our hands over a lifetime in real estate. And yet many of us never buy one of those properties. We never look at it as, is this something I would buy? Maybe even running numbers on properties and just going, hey, I'm just curious. Is this something that would fit into my, asset category, my investment category? Sometimes just simply changing the way we think presents a new opportunity. So I challenge you all, as just part of your day-to-day basis, is to think about where are the opportunities that in the past 2 or 3 or 4 years that you could have purchased, could have been your house, but you went and listed instead for a 3% commission. And that could be giving you, 3% over the next 30 years. So a lot of times we make those decisions because we're hand to mouth. We have to create the income now to be able to continue to prosper the business. And a lot of times we simply make those decisions because we just haven't thought of another way. I think there's probably 90% of the agents, I would say, in real estate period, all they do is help others buy and sell, and they never invest themselves. I'm going to skip over a couple of these, but double dip assets. So this is a concept. So in different investments that you purchase, a lot of times you're investing because you have cash flow, and other times you're investing because there's equity growth. So if I go buy a lot, let's say it's a $50,000 lot, it's difficult for me to have cash flow off of a lot. Maybe in some agricultural, settings, you might be able to have someone run cattle on the property or cut hay on it. But in general, a lot is just simply a speculative investment, and we're hoping that's going to go up in value. Of course, the people who bought land in Texas have done very well. On the contrary, though, if you buy a house, you now have an asset that potentially can be rented out. You can make income from that. And then you also have something that's going up in value. How many of you wish in 2010, 2011, you would have bought everything that you could get your hands on in Dallas-Fort Worth? We'd all be sitting in a lot different position than we are right now. So hindsight's really easy to look at, but that was 10 years ago. So think about what's going to happen in the next 10 years. More than likely, the same opportunity exists for us today. We just don't think of it that way, right? So I'm going to stop right here. I'm going to show you guys a couple of things that I believe sweeten the pot. We're going to talk a little bit about real estate here, since that's what we're all in. And I think that's one of our biggest opportunities. So these are some ways that we can create passive income in our life, okay? But I'm going to focus on this tax planning and rentals section together. Has anyone heard of the term cost segregation? Go. Maybe a few of us in the room, okay? I was introduced to this in 2019, and I was so incredibly mad at my accountant, my CPA, for not presenting this information to me at an earlier date. So what cost segregation is, we all know about depreciation of real estate, right? If we buy an asset in a residential asset, for example, they allow us to depreciate 1/27th, it's 27.5. So if it's a $270,000 house, roughly $10,000 a year, we get in a phantom loss. So we get to show a loss on that property, whether we had a gain or not on it, right? And that helps offset potentially our taxable income. Well, cost segregation, all it does is it speeds up that process. In any property, you have a depreciation schedule with multiple different years as categories, right? So you may have a 5-year, a 7.5 year, a 10-year, a 15-year depreciation category, a 20-year, and then a 30-year. What cost segregation says is that you can get a bonus depreciation on anything in that home that depreciates in 20 years or less. So that includes the paint, the carpet, potentially the roof. Most of the surfaces in your home are going to depreciate or degrade in less than 20 years. And so it requires a specific person, a cost segregation engineer, to set this up for a property. Very easy to do, and I've got context that I'll be willing to share on all this. But what this does for you is it gives you in that same year a giant amount of depreciation that you get to write off. And there's a tax code law, and I'm not going to quote this exactly perfect, but essentially it says that if you spend 750 or more hours a year in real estate, and at least 50% of your time, or no more than 50% of your time is outside of real estate, I should say, then you qualify and you can have an election as a real estate professional. And the magic of that is it allows depreciation from your income properties to offset your income, your loss from your income properties, excuse me, to offset your income in your real estate business. So what it really means is that paying taxes in real estate is optional. Now I'm going to walk you through an example of that. If I have a marker up here by chance.
Lance, what is the benefit of, say, you're in real estate 750 hours? Is there a value assessed to that?
No, it's simply just documentation of your hours. So as a real estate agent, though, it is extremely easy to justify to the IRS that you're a real estate professional. Now, there is a special election that you have to get with your CPA on and talk through that. But that's what's going to allow these losses, and I'm putting them in quotations because it's a phantom loss because we're talking about depreciation. Now, there is a recapture segment to that, you know, if you've ever talked about things, but these are for buy and hold real estate. So let's walk through a quick example here. Let's say we buy, I've got an offer in right now on a house, okay? $350,000, okay? And this property just so happens to have, you know, rent range of, you know, about $2,900 a month, okay? So if you look at that, in this day and age, right, if you make $2,900 on a $350,000 investment, that's not a bad investment. All right, we can find cash flow in it. The payment on this, I'm going to put 20% down, which is, you know, say 70K, right? And I probably could do less. There's some lenders out there that do 15% down for an investment property. But then that's going to leave me with a finance amount and a payment, including taxes and insurance and everything, for about $2,100, okay? So this is before maintenance, and this is before management fees. So we have some other fees in here, but let's say, you know, that comes out to $2,500 in total, maintenance, management, everything else. And we got about $400 a month in cash flow. Not a bad play, right? We know what rent rates are doing. They're going which direction. So we've got more opportunity. We're locking in this, except for the taxes. Of course, we know taxes continue to move up. So $400 a month, that's a solid cash flow play. This property right now, buying at $350 is probably worth $400,000 because we're getting a pretty good value on it. It's off market, okay? So we got $50,000 of equity built into this house. So we've got a little bit of equity growth. We've got a little bit of cash flow growth, right? So we're checking all the boxes. This is where it gets exciting. This $350,000, when you cost segregate, you have to separate the land. And usually land's going to be valued at 10 or 20%. It kind of depends on how you value it. But in this case, let's just say the land's valued at 10%, okay? So the land's $35,000. Let's see over here. So 350K, right? We got land at $35,000, which leaves us what, 315,000 left. Cost segregation typically is going to give you about a 30% write-up. So that's about $100,000 is going to be your write-off. I'm going to simplify this for you guys in a second with a quick formula. So you get, for buying this asset, you get to write off roughly $100,000 against something. If you weren't in real estate, you'd have to write it off against other investment losses, investment gains, okay? But since you're in real estate, that $100,000 write-off could straight up offset $100,000 of real estate income. At a 30% tax bracket, let's just say, that's roughly $30,000 in taxes you simply don't pay. But instead, you put that directly into an investment. So the rule of thumb for me, this is kind of a number I look at, is about 10% of the purchase price of a property is what your tax savings is going to be. So on a $350,000 house, right, we're getting down to about $35,000 that you don't pay the IRS. And that goes into, instead, net worth. So if you did this 2 or 3 times in a year, let's say you make, you know, $150,000 or $200,000 in real estate, you can run the math pretty quickly and go, okay, if I bought two $350,000 homes, it's a $700,000 investment. we got to come up with down payments. We've got to figure this piece out. It could be partnering with other people. There could be, other solutions there. But we are going to essentially not pay $70,000 in taxes that went straight to our bottom line, to our net worth.
You need
This
to
is-
do that every year or one time?
You can do that. Right now, they've got a tapering process. So this was put in place back in 2017. This, I believe, is the last year where they get 100% bonus depreciation. 2023, I believe it goes down to 80%, then to 60%. So we're going to lose a little efficacy over time. But the next 2 years, you have a tremendous opportunity to offset taxes. And this is just one way. It happens to be one of the most prolific ways that people like Donald Trump, for example, big real estate investor, this is how they structure their deals so that they don't pay big taxes. And the crazy thing about it is the IRS only incentivizes what they want you to do. So this is set up for a very specific reason. They want you to invest in real estate, to provide housing, and to continue to make investments in this area. Any questions about that? I know this is kind of quick math.
What was the percentage of depreciation of the 35,000?
So the way the math works is you roughly save 10% on your tax bill based on the purchase price of the property, okay? And that's a rough estimate. There's a few other things that factor in there. Or another way, if you look at it this way, is you have to take out the land, right? You have your remaining asset. You can only depreciate an actual building. Then you take that depreciation off of that, and it typically runs about 30% of a residential home. So then that would give you 30% of 315, let's just say it's $100,000. So you would have a $100,000 write-off against your ordinary income, in this case, which saves you roughly $35,000, right?
And the write-off is the result of taking the $315,000 and breaking it down to carpet, paint, cabinets.
Exactly right.
Doors, windows, and you do all of that. There's guidelines for that.
Yep,
You get faster depreciation, which you've already talked about.
exactly right.
And now the component depreciation will come out to about $100,000.
Exactly right. And so there is a cost for this. There's a gentleman that I use, his name is Eric Oliver. He's actually out of Phoenix. And because of the COVID guidelines, they actually allow right now you to go and video the house, cuts the cost down on this. And because all they need to see is everything in the home. They can see all the components of the home. Costs about $1,500 to do for a single family home. Now, this is not just limited to residential real estate. This can happen in commercial real estate. So there's a lot of other opportunities with this. Mobile home parks can be depreciated, believe it or not. They have underground infrastructure that can be same thing with RV parks. So this depreciation piece is anything that depreciation applies to currently, this would also apply to. So the reason I show you that is it shows you, it really reframes your mind of what you're investing for. We're all investing because we want to create long-term wealth, but we're also investing now to be efficient with our tax equation, right? With our tax planning. So one of the best people that you can get to know in this year, if you don't have one already, is a CPA that understands, how to put this to work for you and how to run this information for you, how to explain it to you, and to continue to grow in this area. There's a book. There's a book called Tax-Free Wealth. If y'all have heard of that, it's Tom Wheelwright writes the book. Probably the best comprehensive resource I've ever seen for tax in general. And he has all kinds of different strategies. But this is one of the primary strategies they also point out is cost segregation.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
As far as like accountants, things like that, is that a specialized, is that kind of a niche on the accountant side? Or
This is yes, I don't think it's a niche. What I think it's a CPA who is knowledgeable and who is willing to upscale you, right?
so I have a question because I hired a CPA a couple of years ago,
Yeah,
knowing we have investment properties and this never came up.
never came up with mine either.
But he's a real estate accountant.
Here's what I asked my CPA.
I'm supposing.
Yeah, here's what I asked my CPA. I said, hey, have you ever heard of cost segregation? I came back from a mastermind. And he's like, oh yeah, of course. So I have multiple investment properties at this point, and I said, why did you never tell me that this is an opportunity? He's like, oh, I didn't know that was something you were looking at doing.
Why would everybody?
So,
do it?
Accountants, here's what they do. We're like, they just churn the wheel, accountants do, right? They're looking to make sure you're filed on time, to make sure that everybody's kind of taken care of from a high level. But there's very few tax planners out there. It's a very, very big difference, I think, with CPAs who just do your taxes for you, but then there's a tax planning component. I now, with the person that I sought out to become my CPA, I specifically said, I want to pay you more for tax planning. Is that a service that you have? And yes, they do. And so there's actually some great CPAs in the area. Matter of fact, Vince Porter came and did a presentation here about a month ago, something like that. Vince Porter is extremely good with this type of thing. He's out of McKinney, Stonebridge area, a local guy, and they've got a group of 8 or 9, people.
That's the guy that worked with Raleigh.
That's correct. Yeah. So Vince is very sharp. So I highly recommend you reach out to someone who knows what they're doing with this and get some advice on your specific situation. But just know that this is open for the taking for anyone in here. Last year, I had about $600,000 in depreciation, offsetting about $200,000 in a tax bill that I would have had to pay. And it was simply because of knowledge. That was it.
How much was you remember the cost, the guy, how much he charged? We talked about this. I
He
think.
charged $1,500,
Yeah.
per property. So, and again, his name is Eric. And so if anybody wants his information, I'm happy to connect. He's phenomenal to work with.
This has to be a new property? There's no way to apply this to old
You can
rentals?
apply to an old one.
So if I buy.
If you've never cost segregated before, you may have, some of your depreciation has been utilized depending on how long you've owned the property. But that was the first thing I did when I learned about it in 2019. I went back to all my old properties. And
Is there an
and
advantage
divided
to
up.
the new construction? You remember the guy we sold one to last year?
It's based upon the purchase price. So it doesn't matter what it's appreciated to or what the property's worth. It's based on purchase price. Is how they do that. And then they net out the land and then run the numbers from there.
So let's just make sure we're clear on one thing.
Yep.
You're not getting additional depreciation. You're just moving it forward.
You're moving it ahead. That's right. So here's what
There will be a day down the road, which, by the way, minimizing taxes is better sooner than later.
Correct.
No question. I'm not arguing with this.
Yes.
But this isn't a complete free lunch.
No. So if you sell this property, there's a recapture of depreciation, right? Part of the reason I don't ever plan to sell properties that I buy is because why? If you have investment income coming in, right, you're building equity in the property, why would you sell the property? What you can do, at least currently with the tax code, is you can do a 1031 tax exchange. And that's going to take whatever your depreciated basis is. You've already depreciated most out. They're going to take that basis and move that to the new property. So there's still ways to continue to defer.
Then
in the tax world.
in your estate, if you give that property to someone in the estate, they get to move the
Stepped up.
step up basis.
Yep,
Yeah.
exactly right.
That's right now. Yeah, right now.
Yeah, of course, lots of changes potentially proposed. So keep in mind, this is the current play. But no matter what, a CPA is going to help you navigate what the current climate is, what the changes are. So it can be one of the most important people to have on your team. I know we'll have some more questions on that too, and I'll try to be open to that. But this is one of the best strategies I think that you can take advantage of. So when it comes to finding investment properties, I think this is a challenge right now for us, right? It's hard to find listings, much less find investment properties. Keep in mind, when we're talking about finding properties, it doesn't necessarily have to be where you live. It does have to be where you've done research and understand the market. And so some of the best opportunities that I'm seeing on the investment side, they're not in Frisco, Texas, and they're not in Plano, Texas. They're in Bedford, they're in Fort Worth, they're in Denison, they're in Sherman. You look at most of where the investments are happening, they're happening in these outskirt growth markets. And so finding information on those, there's a couple ways you can find properties. Number one is wholesale list. How many of you know about wholesale properties? Understand how that works? So wholesale, they're a middleman. All they do is they go find a property and they're going to take $10,000, $15,000 on top of what they paid for it, and they're going to pass it on to you. But the fact is they're finding the properties, there's a value in that. And even if you put $10,000-$15,000 onto their purchase price, it may still be a great investment. One of the potential downsides to wholesale is that many times they want it to be all cash up front. You don't necessarily have to have the cash, but you need to have a hard money lender. You need to have someone that could pick up that asset, right? Make the changes necessary, and then refinance it out to a long-term rental property for you. So wholesale is one way that you can find properties. Another way is you're in real estate, you're connecting and talking to people all the time. If you went back into your database and looked at all the lower end properties that came your way, you calculated your 3% commission, that you're going to get on that, and said, no, thanks, I don't want to take that right now. You may want to go back and reach out to those people. There may be a desire for them to sell. You may want to set up a campaign to reach out to those people, email, text. You may want to hire a person to call them on your behalf. So the value in finding properties that are off market that no one else has found is there's less competition, right? So see, one of the things that you have to have figured out though is what's your strategy? How are you going to find those people to help you pick up those properties? Who's on your team? These investment clubs sometimes can be a really great resource, not necessarily maybe for the information they're presenting, but also the people. Everyone in that room is looking to do something very similar that you are. Oh, thanks. The other thing is when you're talking about buying a real estate too, there's a lot of people, a lot of agents out there that find properties all the time, and guess what? They can't buy them, or they don't buy them. And so networking with other agents and other offices, and especially in some of these smaller markets, could be a great opportunity to find investment deals. So you have to find whatever it is, you create your system to find opportunities, and you have to continue to work a system that's going to provide opportunities. What we do is we have a small wholesale company, and I honestly could care less if we ever wholesale one property. All we want to do is find the properties. That's the goal. And I want to be the first person to look at it. And a wholesale company typically consists of people reaching out and calling, or some type of lead system, right? That people are needing cash offers to sell their property. So you're looking for motivated sellers. I won't go into too much detail there. There is a lot of information on, we have the book Hold, that is the yellow book through Keller Williams. And there's a blue book called Flip. And I believe there's one more, it's called The Millionaire Investor. So I would highly suggest you go get a hold of the book Hold, which is the yellow book, because this strategy is designed for hold investors. Okay. Any questions on that?
Flip is green.
Is it green? Okay.
MREI is blue.
Okay. Yeah. Did it change colors? Oh, okay. It's always been that. Let's get through some of this stuff here. It's another strategy I want to hit on. I don't think we have time to go over all the detail on it, but there is a vehicle within life insurance. And you'll hear it referred to a lot of different things, but Infinity Banking System is one of the terms. And there's a book called Banker's Code that essentially tells you how to become your own bank. And it outlines this strategy better than any other book that I've seen. But essentially what it is you go in, you can buy life insurance and then borrow back against that cash value. So one of the biggest anxieties I had with making big investments is that once I make that investment, that money leaves my account, I no longer have access to it. What if a really great deal comes across, I put my money in let's say the stock market, okay? And a really great opportunity comes across, I got to sell out of that stock, right? To be able to access that money to buy this great deal that's available. So I started doing some more research and figuring out how are other people doing this? How are they gaining access to their money, but also getting more than 0.0001%, from their savings account or from their bank account? And so the solution I came upon was it's a whole life insurance policy. They also have some other variable life kind of policies, but essentially the reason this works well is if I put $100,000 into this investment, I'm going to get a reasonable rate of return. Let's say 4%. A lot of times it's a guaranteed rate. And yet I can borrow back about 95% of my cash value at any given point in time. It's not a quick play, but over about 5 or 6 or 7 years, these can start to grow in and of themselves at their 4+% rate of return, and yet still provide liquidity for your investing world. I've got a gentleman who's extremely good at doing these, they're very focused on it. So I went to him, I had him help structure this to me, for me. And actually, I funded the life insurance policy by my purchases of real estate. So let's say I needed, for this last example, a $70,000 down payment. I gave that $70,000 into the life insurance policy and I borrowed back about 60,000 of that, let's just say. So I lost 10,000, but I'm funding this life insurance policy that does twofold for me. Number one, gives me the liquidity and a reasonable rate of return over time. And number two is it provides a legacy for my family. If whole life insurance policy, the great thing about it, it will pay out. It's just a matter of when, right? So not to get super morbid about it, but I want, if anything ever happens to me, I want my family to be better taken care of than if I'm here. And so it provides a way to build a very, very large amount of life insurance money. And the other thing too is it's creditor protected. And when you do pass, right, it has some pretty cool tax transfer type pieces, right? Death tax. So it's just something to look into. But again, Infinity Banking System, the book called Banker's Code gives you a lot more information about how it operates. So I started putting funds into this, and then because I have rental properties as well, what I'm going to do is redirect all the rental income to go through this policy and then borrow that back. And right now it's invested at least 4% or higher, and I can borrow that money back at 3 or 3.5%. So even if I borrow back, I still have a 0.5% or 1% growth in that particular asset. So yes.
I had that policy. My dad was an insurance broker, so just a little sidebar. And I bought one because I thought it was such a great idea in the 80s. And, I didn't have anybody, I wasn't married. So I put the policy on my mom, and I can't tell you how many times I tapped it without having to qualify. I started a business, it went to college, I bought my first house. It's a fantastic idea. But recently I tried to up that again.
Yeah.
To capture my money so it wouldn't be spent. And I got a bunch of pushback about how I had to go through a fiduciary and tell them what it was for. Have you had it long enough that you know about that?
I've never had any pushback. Now they have, of course, they have all your information, and who you get your life insurance policy from and who you borrow the money against the life insurance policy is many times two separate entities, or it can be. Matter of fact, I recommend that it is, because you typically get a whole lot better deal. All they're doing is they're holding your policy as collateral for the amount of cash policy that you have and allowing you to borrow back against that. So to your point, there's very few questions if it's structured right. Yeah, I can potentially help you with some contacts that may help on that too. Over time though, once you get to, between the 5 and 10 year mark, what starts to happen is this is growing as another investment vehicle for you. And then yet you can become your own bank. So think about 5 to 10 years down the road is if you want to go purchase a vehicle, you're not going to go whatever the then interest rates are. You're not going to go to the dealership and go ask for a loan. You're just going to go to your life policy and borrow back against it and then make payments back to yourself with interest. Wouldn't you rather pay yourself interest than pay a bank or someone else that interest? So the concept behind it is very impressive. Like I said, it's not a quick scheme to kind of build this up. It takes some time to build that up. And there is a whole segment about your first year investment kind of sets the cap of how much you can push into this policy a year. So you cannot necessarily, I couldn't put 100,000 into the first year and then 500,000 into the second year. Your first year sets it up. So you want to get with somebody who really understands how to set these up and make it the most efficient it possibly can be for you. Any questions on life insurance?
I can tell you we did that.
Yeah.
At 25, Marcia and I did that. And then we borrowed against it to pay for college for the kids. And now we're.
Great example. Life is always going to happen to us. We're always going to need access to capital. So if we put it into smart investments that we can get that back without necessarily having to sell off assets. That's the challenge when we borrow from a stock market or something like that. You have to sell off your assets at the then price. This is a way to borrow against that asset. The last thing I really wanted to go over is thinking about our real estate business as it's the primary engine for income, but what are some other side businesses or some parallel businesses that we could put alongside our real estate business? We're already doing the work. We're building the network. We're making the relationships. We're probably working harder than we ever will in our life right now. How do we make it efficient so that not only are we building our real estate business, but we're building another business on the side? And so there's lots of different ways you can do this. I'm sure y'all heard of syndicate apartment investing. So all these syndicates that exist out there, they need money, they have to raise capital. So if you're working with high net worth clients and you already have a trust and a rapport built as a real estate agent, it very likely could be an opportunity, right, to have high trust in other areas, such as, you know, an apartment investment. That could be a great return for them. Another example is, as we're building our businesses, there may be opportunities to set up, and we'll have to, you know, get with Bob on some of these, but, you know, set up some other services for them. So you probably know you get reached out to by ADT security service all the time. You get reached out to a lot of different entities that are trying to pay you to gain access to your client's information, right? So you have to be extremely diligent about how you structure these connections. But if you're setting expectations up front and you have permission from, you know, Bob as the broker, from the team, then you could potentially have other income streams coming from the same clients that you're selling real estate to, right? So I just want you to be thinking about what, you know, the office is doing the same thing right now. Mike and Dick are talking to title companies right now. They have a title connection that was presented in January. Why? Because we have the ability in real estate to direct title business in a lot of ways. We can help make that connection. And so there could be potentially ownership or some type of asset gain over time, right? If you had connection to a partnership like that. Anywhere that we're giving out business could be a place to look. You may be able to partner in insurance business. That's another thing that we a lot of times have the ability to connect. So be thinking about where are all the areas that you're giving out opportunities that you could have ownership in that opportunity. Of course, we always have to disclose those ownership opportunities. But at the same time, if a client's getting the best value service from you, they're not necessarily going to care as long as that's presented up front. So your network is your net worth. We've heard this, right? Who are the people in your network that you have a potential other product or service that could be connected into? And ideally, you're doing all this with leverage from an operator within a business. I don't encourage any of us to be an operator in multiple businesses. It doesn't work well. I learned my lesson pretty well in that. So you typically you can have as many boxes as you want, which is ownership, but you can only live in one box at a time. So anything that you're doing, you want to find ways that you have an operator or another primary interest, and you're just taking a little piece of the pie. Just a little percentage, a little connection point so that you have opportunities to grow that over time.
Yeah, on title and on mortgage, Mike and I have a standard statement we make to them. Now, we want to go in business with you, but we don't want to be in your business.
Right.
We want you to run that. We run what we do, and then together we'll do well.
Yep.
But we don't want to run the mortgage business.
You don't want to wear two
Run the
hats.
title business.
Yeah. We got plenty of hats in the real estate business, right?
Yeah.
Real estate professional, counselor, all that. This is just a quick discussion on back to the tax area. So we just covered one tax area. This is the value of a great CPA. There is a lot of other ways that you can reduce your taxable income in the business. One of those is hiring your kids in the business. So this is something I've been talking about for a while. My children were a little younger at the time. Now they're 8 and 10. If your child has the ability to provide value in your business, stuffing envelopes, being part of your marketing, those types of things, you can actually pay them up to $12,000, $12,500 per child. And for the IRS, if they're $12,500 or less on income, they don't have to file and pay taxes on that money. So you effectively take $12,500 as an expense in your business, and your children, which you're probably going to give them money anyway, right? Now have resources that can be utilized toward their school, toward their activities, toward their whatever it may be, and yet pay no tax on that. So just something to be aware of, and again, something to bring up to a CPA. Most CPAs are highly aware of this. Let's see, another one is, there's a rule called the Augusta rule. This is renting your home out. So for those of you who have events at your home, say you have a team event at your home, you can actually go out and maybe connect to another or look up another Airbnb on what those rental charges are. You could even go to a hotel in some cases. What does it cost at the Hilton to have a fully catered entire event set up for a group of people? What does that cost? Go to the Hilton, get a printout of that, and utilize that then as your evidence of what it would cost for same thing for your house, right? You're just switching locations and you're fully catering and providing that. And then that could be a complete write-off against your business, and that you can do it for 14 days. The Augusta rule actually came from Augusta, Florida, when they had some wealthy owners of homes around the golf tournaments, and they had lobbied to get this in so that they say, hey, when these tournaments come, we're renting our homes out and we want to benefit from it. So just another area to be looking and talking to your CPAs about. Your telephone and internet reimbursements, making sure that everything is falling under your business and that you have a correct business entity or structure set up to be able to write those off. So a lot of what a CPA can do is, this is my CPA set up an LLC and did an S Corp election. And the primary reason for that is how you're categorizing the expenses. If we're sitting under the individual tax bracket, it may be much higher than as compared to, an LLC or an S Corp election on what we're able to write off. So again, you want to be talking to the CPA on how you're structured. I've got some other pieces, R&D tax credits. This doesn't really apply to our business as much. Generating losses from active investments to offset ordinary income. This is what we talked about with your unique ability to be a professional real estate agent. So if anything else, I hope that what I'm presenting is getting you to think about who is your professionals and who are your go-to people in your life, and what type of discussions and accountability are you holding them to? What type of expectations do you have of them to be able to help you? What are some other people on your financial team that you currently have or should have? We talked a lot about CPA.
Well, you should have someone who's prepared your will.
Estate planner.
Estate planner.
Yeah, super important.
You should have a financial planner.
Financial planner.
I think-
advisor.
Insurance.
Yep.
Be a big component of that. Yeah. And then when you're building a deeper relationship with those individuals and providing them business, what should you expect back from them being in real estate? Exactly. So this all tends to work to your advantage, but you really have to initiate the conversations, be very selective on your professional team that you have around you, and then have them understand that, hey, this is where we want to build a business relationship together. I want to continue to send you people and connect you to people that I think would be appropriate for your business, and have an expectation they would do the same.
In the MREI book, it talks about your team. And it goes a little bit different direction, but the same idea. Landscaper,
Yeah.
a contractor,
Mini plumbers,
plumbers.
electrician.
Yeah, handyman.
How many of us are having business conversations with our referral partners? We're sending referrals to them. They're super happy to take those referrals, but how many times are we calling them up and saying, hey, last year we were so thankful to be able to send you 15 referral opportunities last year. And this year, my goal is to do the same or even exceed that. And want to chat with you a moment about who you might know in the business as you're coming into contact with people that might be looking to sell or buy this year. Can I count on you for one opportunity within the next 90 days? You don't have to have them vetted out. You don't have to talk to them about real estate. You just have to say, hey, Lance, I think this person might be interested, to make the connection. And if you did that with everybody on your vendor list, imagine how much opportunity is right under our nose just from relationships. So honestly, this is what I had today. I hope this was helpful. Hope you got some new ideas. Yes.
I have one question. You piqued my interest on the apartment syndicates and hooking them up with wealthy
Yep.
individuals. How are you normally compensated for that? Is that each one's unique and you work out a deal with the syndicate, or how do we make money connecting those people?
That's a great question. There's an industry standard out there, and typically it's 2% of investment going in. And a lot of times there's opportunity on the backside as well. So everybody's different how they structure the syndicates. But what I would say is you go into like Bigger Pockets is a website and start looking on there. They've got a lot of information about those syndicates. You can do some research on what type of compensation there is out there. And more than anything, if you've got that clientele, you want to be talking to not just decent syndicate people, you want to be talking to the best, the people who are absolutely the best and are hungry to grow their portfolio right now. And there's a lot of them out there, especially in the Dallas area.
So have you seen opportunities where you could take equity
Yes,
in those positions instead of?
100%. Yep. Like I said, there's a lot of people out there and they're trying to raise capital because, their strategy is to grow a bigger portfolio. And they have what's called an upreat on the backside where they sell, you have to build a certain size asset to be able to sell it off. And when they sell it off, they make a lot of money on the back end.
And I
There's
think you have to be
plenty
a
of opportunity.
qualified investor, so they're gonna look at your net worth and
Yep.
they're gonna want 100,000 to start.
Minimum,
So maybe it's step 2.
minimum 100 or 150.
Yeah, but you don't have to be the qualified investor to make an investment if you're just helping them to find people to make the investment. So
One of the things we talked about Tuesday, and you're really hitting on it again in an implied way, is this takes knowledge and education on our part. You've already told your story, and your story is you work hard on a continual basis at getting smarter and more knowledgeable about these things to utilize. It doesn't, you can't turn everything over to a CPA. You can't just turn everything over to an insurance agent. You've got to have some level of working knowledge. That's just a common denominator between what we talked about on Tuesday and what you're talking about now.
100%. And I think the easiest way, we have one of the cheapest ways to get education, a lot cheaper than college, is books. My favorite investment that I make each year, it costs me $15 a month, whatever that is a year, $180, something like that, right? A year is an Audible subscription. And I can go into Audible, I have 1 credit a month that pops up. Of course, you can buy as many as you want after that. It forces me to go buy books. And when we're driving around, which a lot of us have windshield time in this business, make your car a learning center as you're driving around. And if you want a list of books or a place to start, I'm happy to help with that and provide some opportunities that are on my Audible list. But I think that's probably the easiest thing we can all do to start learning about these topics. Tax-free wealth that I mentioned earlier with Tom Reelwright, that's on Audible. It's actually Tom himself talking in the book. Atomic Habits, another one of my favorite books that we've been going over with our team. It's an Audible book by James Clear. So a lot of these things are freely available out there. It's just us taking time out, time blocking, right, for even our education as well. There's a book called Wealthy Code that breaks down a lot of the numbers aspect of investing. It's as you can see, it's not a very thick book. It's an easy book to get through. Not saying it takes some time as you're going through some of the formulas and information. And it really does a great job breaking down investment of real estate, of homes, breaking down just investments in general, the terms that you're going to come into contact with when you're investing. So you hear a lot about cap rates and coverage ratios and things like that within this book. But one of the best small books to really get ingrained in the concepts of investing. And then as you're reading this book, you're going to have, your thoughts are going to start sparking. And that's my favorite part about books, is it gets your brain working in overdrive. So this is by George, I don't know if it's Antone or I guess how you pronounce it. But anyway, The Wealthy Code. He also wrote the book called The Banker's Code that I was talking about. So
What was the name of the website that you said to go with the syndicate?
Bigger Pockets.
Nature Pockets?
Bigger Pockets.
Bigger Pockets.
Yeah. That's like it's a community that brings together tons of investors, and you can spend a lot of time just reading through the forums that they have, and it can bring you up to speed on investing and wealth building in a very short period of time.
So Dave Ramsey recently had a quote in a podcast he did with Andy Andrews. He said, "Read like a maniac." He said, everything you need, everything you want is in a book.
Yeah.
He said, I read books constantly. He said, it's just unbelievable. And then he's got a book coming out called Millionaire Baby Steps. And I went ahead, it's coming out like on the 11th. And if you pre-order it, you get it for a little cheaper price, plus a lot of goodies that he throws in. And for those of you who might be interested, go to RamseySolutions.com. RamseySolutions.com, but you gotta do it before the 11th if you want to get the complete freebie. I mean, not freebie, but I don't know what the package is, but it's
Some extras he throws in, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, with Dave, Dave, of course, has been an expert on this matter for a long time, and really, I think his big push is getting out of debt. And it's kind of starting, through with more of a cash cycle instead of a debt cycle. He has a cash envelope system that actually when my younger brother, him and his wife had used that, and it worked out tremendously in their life. It really reformed their mind around money and what was available. There's a new software out there that I have actually talked to the owner of, and this is growing popular very quick, called Cube Money, Qube. Cube Money is essentially the app form of the cash envelope system. And so it's a series of micro accounts, for example, for groceries or for your housing budget or things like that. And you can't spend over that. If you do, it requires an additional approval and you have to move money from one bucket to the other bucket. But it's a way to help us manage money. Because sometimes we simply just, all the money we make, we spend, and there's nothing left over for investing. So we have to create margin for investing in our life. Thank you guys for showing up today.
Thank you.
Lance.
Thank you. If there's anything that I can help email out or follow back up with to, my email is lance@taylorteamdfw.com. So you may send that out.
If you want, I took some notes too, so if anybody wants to leave me your email address, I can send you what you covered
Okay,
that wise and then the notes I took.
that's perfect. Awesome. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Lance, would you share your contacts and, for the life and for the syndicates?
Yeah, absolutely. So Tyler McGee is the person who set up my life insurance. He's connected with a company called Unbridled Wealth. Another guy named Jonathan you might have talked to as well. And so Tyler, I'll give you Tyler's number.
Sure. Paulina.
Might be coming back on vacation right now, but it's 850-428-0604.
Thank you.
Super intelligent guy.
Can you repeat that again? I'm sorry.
Sure. It's 850-428-0604. And currently I'm taking my loans out through Bancorp. They have a really, really great product that ties into your life insurance policy, right? I think Emeritus is who I set my life insurance up with.
You have that number?
For Emeritus?
No, for Bancorp.
Oh, if you reach out to Tyler, he's got all that.
Okay, fantastic.
All right. Thank y'all for coming.
What was the cost? I didn't write down the actual term.
Segregation.
Google that.
There's a lot of information out there on it. It's amazing our accountants and CPAs don't tell us about these things.
Yeah. Lance, my accountant's.
Is it really?
Yes. I'm gonna call him right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So Vince knows all about it.
Yeah, that's what I got from birthday.
Yeah.
Still finding it out. I'll ask him here.
That's what my account is too. Like, just get your tax back. That is not my goal in life. Yeah. Yeah, that's what I did like that.
Mikey, everything kind of like.
We would really probably hear. I'm sure he'll be like, hey, I just get a baseline. I don't 100% able to surprise you. That's why I like. It's more like, there is an advantage to that. More. I'll tell you, you're talking to. He's with American Realty. He's a property. I can do that.
Information, right?
Yeah. Case. And Kyle can walk you through. some of the things.
Thanks for
So I sold.
All came from the books.
Yeah, well, the tax benefits of owning a property and renting it out. So let's say, so a brand new construction, there are advantages. And I don't fully understand all of them. Kyle
Four of us are part of
this. Cost said, yeah, you need to like take a
affordable depreciation.
Yeah, you can do some percentages of
talked to the cost
depreciation.
center.
That's a cynical. Just make my big apartment complex, they have a portion of that cost segregation flows into. From their personal side.
The more depreciation on the first year than you do, that's right. So like the first year, you
Even justify the loss.
appreciate 100% of everything. It's insane.
And
so they're not on that real estate professionals.
So a lot of it, people that invest with, matter of fact, I would rather invest with that person.
Every detail on
Person who's in my
depreciation process.
Because they can't.
What do they call those? Right? My dad was a CPA.
And you can actually structure a deal where you get higher.
That when you pay off your mortgage, it's a Excel sheet.
Because they can't.
Like an amortization table, you know what I'm talking about? Same kind of thing, it's depreciation. So Kyle Carter, you can talk to him because I sold a $660,000.
Absolutely. I didn't get your name.
Correct. Go ahead.
Correct, okay.
Yeah.
I'm
He's on our team.
He talked to me also too.
But I didn't pay him $12,500.
Kyle is at Denton.
I just Denton. He worked for Denton way back in the '60s. Yeah.
It was better working for somebody else to start with. Well, cool, yeah.
That's because the equity, I don't know.
And
Well, of course, everything we're doing, because we're buyers, big investments, we're doing.
That's not too funny, because when he goes.
The 5-year appreciation, it's not necessarily.
Why did you freaking pay me?
It's the appreciation of the house for the next 5 years. Oh my God, dude.
How are you, man? Good, how are you?
You missed a good class.
No, it is.
You
So.
got good notes.
They got it recorded. It's all in the books.
Okay, it's all in the books.
What's your name?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're in Lance, we're in.
Okay, excellent.
You thought I missed like the first 3 hours.
Yeah. He's like a fire hydrant of information.
Yeah.
So I didn't bring any notes because I'm like, no, I'm just gonna wait until I get in the office and ask out all the questions. So. I don't get that up on your video. We have been talking about it.
Yeah, I was trying to.
Page is on here. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I can type.
I am going to see this.
I almost went on this guy, but I was like, what's the mask? It's yours.
No, please. I'm looking at him. I'm not even. looking.
I can read. One of our team members are like, when I'm reading my notes now, 4 to 5, doesn't mean I put that into it. But the important one is make sure years later. It's straight up, but I'm really, the fortunate thing for me is I'm here, I'm like, everybody's worried about, like, no, she didn't.
Oh my gosh, I'm glad I didn't see it.
I don't know her. I don't know her. I feel bad. Oh, God. That's hilarious.
Yeah, correct.
This class was very memorable.
Just sometimes, just the education from basing in that area. Basically to get the right person.
Not doing it.
You can tell I remember this very well. And built, I even used it. For 2 years. But I was able to make that transition happen.
3 months. 3 months.
Tax concept. That's the other. No tax.
It happens, and they can move money around literally the next time. Like it happens so quick, they don't ask me about it. It's your money, but it's just you got access back.
So right now.
Yeah, let's go. Nothing like.
50%.
I mean, okay.
Just let it sit there. Yeah. Have an expense that comes up. You're right. 2 businesses.
Yeah, it's what I look at this. And if you have to
You never
never
pay.
It's always a lot of work when you take the money out, so. Yeah, to me.
I don't think enough people talk about it.
There should be on your profile, you
Yeah.
like similar to like Google.
Paying a
So go to my account.
Yes.
charge, I take a deposit, they charge a little fee, they charge, fee for the.
Thank you so much. Yeah, and so that's why I say, it's like 5 years, I feel like to get them kicking, where you kind of get the fees out of the way, you're to actual growth.
But if you're young, it's like,
Yeah, correct.
and if you have, you're like.
That's what I'm from.
Exactly right.
I work.
Like you said, it's for savings, right?
Yeah, exactly,
That helps.
especially when it comes out on that.
Someone
Yeah,
does it.
absolutely.
Yeah. So I think we're gonna try and do that.
Oh, thank you. I guess that's good.
What you should remember about me is I'm an interior designer and I'm a
Okay.
So Bob Baker knows that I have a separate business called Premise Realty. I have 22 homes.
Okay, great.
And I have approved. So I don't know who manages your properties, but our daughter comes up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Her daughter,
Actually 2 years older than my daughter, like,
Yeah.
because they can do a conviction and she's really good for the life of it.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
is reduced and all your tax consequences, but it's ready to sell anytime.
Yeah, but I highly recommend, I should probably talk more about property management, because I highly recommend. Self-managed.
I don't know that she will either, but I.
Right. You need therapy.
Distractions, yeah. So I moved my properties all over to property managers here the last couple of years, simply.
I know,
because
that's the only thing I said. I was like,
I was waiting for midnight.
Yeah.
Next month.
Would you?
Or HVAC, seems like, one or the other, yeah, the summer. Yeah.
Do you have some coming
What if
out?
I'm still in there? I've only been.
I currently don't, I literally just put them all, with property. A big part of the portfolio is in like Longview and Arkansas,
You need it.
yeah. So I used local property management groups in those areas.
Local spring.
But you,
Because your contractors, they have to be close by.
yeah, you're doing the right thing though by connecting the office and then so you could be able to grow that quickly.
Great. I'll reach out to you, see how much.
Yeah. Thanks, Zach. Nice to meet you.
Right.
Lance, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Fantastic.
Good. But you got value
I
out of
have
it.
no idea my CPA hasn't been telling me this all these years, but now I know.
I was so frustrated. I was like, how in the world? And my guy's a sharp guy. He's just not a tax planner.
I have the same way people have asked me, who's your CPA? And I'm almost reluctant to give it out.
Yeah.
But he knows what I'm looking for, it's just he doesn't do it.
Yeah.
And all this time it's my own fault. I should have.
I set up a bookkeeper 2 years ago, so a CPA, right? And they take care of a lot of stuff. And I started thinking, if I want to change over from my CPA, this is a whole mess of stuff, all my things, like it's too easy for me to keep working with this guy, but I really have no power to move unless I have it all, a little more in my control. So I hired a bookkeeper, $200 a month, right? And she got everything in my world kind of pulled together in QuickBooks. Like I'm not a bookkeeper at all. I'm not good at this, individual, little piecemeal stuff, and set me up on a system so I can get receipts back to her, receipts to her. And then I was in a position that I could just go, hey, just share the login on QuickBooks with the new CPA, moved it over just like that. So I had to transition it with a bookkeeper. So smart.
Exactly. That's
It's very impressive.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate
You've
that.
definitely done your homework.
I'm on a journey.
You are, that's good, it's a good journey.
Yeah.
You gotta run and start at it too.
It's been fun. I'm fortunate to be, part of a real estate family where I've heard some of these things from a long time ago. But, what I realized is even my brothers and my father, they don't seek out the information, And so the best thing I ever did was spend money on masterminds.
I was going to come talk.
So I got into a mastermind in 2019, changed the way I thought about everything. And it was way more money than I was spending for coaching and training.